Hello, my name is Lisa Bridge, and I'm the Executive Director of the Port Washington Children's Center. Thank you for joining me today to go through a little bit of the health and safety as well as programming aspects of Port Day Camp for summer 2021. First, we're going to start with the Port Day Camp's sick policy for this upcoming summer so that you can be prepared of how we would be handling any possible COVID cases in the camp. Some of the things that we're looking for are any symptoms of cold or flu, including things like diarrhea, vomiting, rash, cough, headache. Any of those aspects, we ask for parents to keep your child home. In addition, children with a fever need to be kept home for 72 hours and come back with a doctor's note stating that either the fever is not COVID related or the child needs to come back with a negative COVID test. In addition, if your child or member of your family has had a positive COVID test, it's critical to inform the center immediately, call the Department of Health, and stay home to quarantine for a 14-day period or per the DOH's instruction. The center requires a copy of the Department of Health's quarantine instructions. Some of the symptoms of COVID in children are different than in adults. So these are the types of symptoms we would be looking for in the camp. So fever, nasal congestion or runny nose, cough, sore throat, shortness of breath, fatigue, headache, muscle aches, nausea or vomiting, diarrhea, or poor appetite. Here are some of the quarantine protocols we'd be going through in case your child potentially had to be excluded from being either exposed to COVID or having COVID themselves. So when would a pod or a group be quarantined? If a child has tested positive in the pod, if a counselor has tested positive in the pod, or after quarantine, there's not a sufficient amount of staff to run the group. When would the camp quarantine? If there appears to be a multiple group outbreak that is related, or if there's a governmentally shut down based on a mandate from the state. How long would a class quarantine last? The quarantine would last 14 days from the time of the last exposure. Children and adults must take a PCR test 10 days into the quarantine or later, depending on having siblings, and present a negative test to return to the center. Many families have asked about tuition and refunds since during the time of COVID, there may be quarantines during camp. So the initial $450 deposit is non-refundable unless camp does not run. The deadline for full payment and or full refund is May 14th, 2021. Quarantines are not prorated or refunded unless there is a full camp shutdown. And refunds for tuition are only granted if the camp does not run for the summer. So going back to health and safety, what about if you or someone in your household becomes sick? If you exhibit signs of cold and flu, please keep your children home while you test. If any member of your child's household tests positive, please report it to the center right away. So we are asking for families to make sure that you keep your campers home this summer if you or anyone in your household becomes sick, and have that child be excluded from camp until you test to make sure that no one is positive. If somebody in your household is positive, you'd be following the quarantine procedures that I just went through. So pivoting, a lot of families have asked, well, what does it mean for this year? And what are our plans for 2021? What will Port Day Camp look like in a time of COVID? We are planning on having it held in a district elementary school. We are waiting for confirmation of which school that would be at. We should know that answer within the next few months. We plan on running the camp predominantly outdoors, as we normally do, but using the indoors when it's inclement or there is extreme heat. And we will be using it for things like cook shop and other types of activities that require the indoors. Vendors, outings, and planned trips to the pool are still part of our plans for Port Day Camp. We are waiting for any information regarding the pool. Last year, the pool was closed to all camp groups, but open to the town and public. We are waiting for a decision made by the town of North Hempstead around our use of the pool. If we are unable to use the pool, we are going to be creating a very fun water playground type of atmosphere outside for the children. So children, if COVID is looking a little bit like it does right now, we would have children wear masks indoors. Generally, we would not have them wearing masks outside, but if the numbers of cases are high, we may have children wear masks all the time, except when when being vigorous in some kind of activity or something that would be involving the water, like paddleboarding. Currently, the class size or group size is capped at 15 by the Department of Health. This potentially could increase by July, but we are making our plans based on a class of 15 versus 20. Pods are going to be retained, and that means that we will be keeping each class group separate from other groups, and they would be then sitting separately from each other at lunch and other activities in order to keep them safe. If numbers, however, decrease as predicted, pods maybe will not be necessary. Regardless of what is happening, Port Day Camp is always going to be fun. Here's what our first session plan is going to look like based on our calendar. If you notice, we have many of the same activities. There is no plan to make any type of major shift in our planning. Our Fridays are going to have vendors such as Jester Jim. We're going to have the Wizards. We're going to have Mad Science. We're going to have many themes. We're going to have our carnival. Most of the things that we normally would do in Port Day Camp are planned for this summer. So again, the only real question mark is the pool use, and we are trying to find backup plans to that. But if the pool for some reason was going to be something that was not offered to camps, we would have a very fun water playground atmosphere that we would build so that children wouldn't even miss the pool. So for session 2, you can see we're having Candy Day, Neon Days. We're bringing in people of Earth music. We're having different tug of wars. This is where you can see our Carnival Day is on August 4th. We're doing group Olympics. So some of the adaptations we would need to make is if we're doing Olympics, we would just need to be doing the types of activities where children would have to remain in their groups and pods. And there would need to be sort of some changes so that there wouldn't be close contact. Things are changing so quickly that we don't know whether or not we'll be able to mix the groups yet. But if we are, we will be having our camp just as we normally would have. The small amount of tweaking we would be doing this summer is really about just maintaining the pods, keeping a smaller group size. And again, we're just waiting for confirmation on which elementary school we're going to be at and whether or not we'll have access to the pool. So in closing, we have many safety protections in place already. We've been using these at the Children's Center, and we use them with our program, Kidsport, that is a full day program in the center last summer. So we feel very confident about running a safe program. We're hopeful that this upcoming summer, we will not be able to, or not have to be able to use different types of safety measures that preclude children from being close to each other. So this year, we're hoping things will be a little bit more open and we'll be able to potentially take masks off indoors and have the children be able to be maskless the entire summer. Either way, Port Day Camp is going to be so much fun. It's always been so much fun, and we have lots of fun activities and vendors just as we normally do, and look forward to seeing your family this summer with us.